welcome to another edition of Abraham Chicks. And today I've got an incredible person to co-create with who has just got so many amazing stories. Her name is Cherilyn Jones. Hi, Cherilyn.
Hi, Dina. So happy to be on your podcast and looking forward to chatting with you.
It's so good to have you here. So Cherilyn has given me a little bit of a background into what she does, but you feel free to jump in if I miss something out here. So you started off training dolphins, is that right?
Yeah, I have a pretty wild background. So my dream job was to work with dolphins and whales ever since I was a little girl, and I was able to accomplish that. I lived in Hawaii, and I worked at a beautiful place called Sea Life Park on Oahu. So a lot of people, if you've seen the movie 50 First Dates, that's the place that I worked. So it was a beautiful, beautiful location, and I got to have close proximity to dolphins, one-on-one, very strong bonds with them, and it was literally my dream job. So I started doing that, and then I eventually did marine mammal rescue and rehab.
That's a difficult one to say. Yeah.
And in Port Hueneme, like Ventura County in California. So I did that for a while. And I actually needed a job where I could work from home and be able to create my own schedule because I was in charge of the rescue and response. So at the time it was volunteer only. Some things had changed and it was volunteer only. And so that's how I got my real estate license, and I started selling real estate. And that was actually a very lucrative, successful endeavor for me. And so as I became very successful in that, they asked me to start coaching real estate agents, which then turned into coaching their friends and family, and it turned into more of a life coaching thing. So I've been doing that as well for the last 6 years, and that's actually really taken off for me as well.
And the way you've just kind of, from training dolphins to running a huge company now, and it was effortless. I mean, was it all, how did you manifest it? Was it intentional? Or?
It was the real estate wasn't intentional because I could never, that would have never been something I would have chosen, but it was just one of those things when you have a very strong desire. For me, I had about $75,000 in debt that I wanted loans that were really heavy and burdensome. And so I had a strong desire to get those completely paid off. And when we were buying our house, our real estate agent, he was not lazy at all, but he literally was able to sell one house a month and surf and dive and not really have to put a lot of effort into working. And I thought, that's great. I want to do that.
Perfect job.
Yeah, sure enough. So that I was getting the green light. My intuition was saying, go for this. And I thought, no way. That just seems so left field. But I kept getting the inspiration, just do it. And so I went for it, and I killed it my first year. I sold a ton of houses, and I loved helping people, and I loved the variety of the architecture and the fun of it, and it just really worked out. So I think the manifestation was just putting a desire of wanting to be more financially free, and it was just the next logical step for me. That path opened up, and it really was a good fit for me.
Perfect. But at that time, did you know that you were intentionally manifesting? Were you aware of sort of the law of attraction at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first book that I got when I was in Hawaii was Conversations with God. And that's another story for another time, but I actually had cancer, and I wanted to heal my cancer, and my roommate gave me that book, which taught me that my thoughts create my reality. And so I went on this huge spiritual path of hunger, of wanting to know more. And so I just dove into every book I could find, every teacher. I was hungry to understand how that worked and actually applying it. So definitely I was very aware of being intentional with what I wanted to create and how what I put out comes back. And so just putting it out there that I really wanted to have more financial freedom. And the path to that was just following my intuition and feeling good. I kind of had those basics down. So yes.
Wonderful. And clearly you did manage to heal yourself, which is amazing.
Yeah, I did. I think when people first find out about the law of attraction, they have less resistance. So I was able to do that. And it was, for me, laughter was easy for me to tap into that. I learned that if you're laughing, your body is in a really good state. And I envisioned a clean bill of health. I spent every day, at least 2 to 3 times a day, visualizing that clean bill of health. And then for me, the third thing I did was I did the somewhat like the Gerson therapy. I juiced a lot, and that was just kind of my permission slip to help my body be very healthy internally, so that I could believe it was easier for me to cure my cancer.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
Yeah,
Amazing. And that was a story I didn't know about. But that's,
I know.
Huge.
That's
so
but
huge.
that's how I learned about the law of attraction, and that's how I got onto wanting to know more and practice it and apply it in my life.
Yeah. And it's like for a lot of people, they're out there and they're trying to understand how the law of attraction works and how to manifest things. And, I always tell them, start off with something small, get the evidence, see the synchronicity, but that's huge for you. So, I mean, your belief in how it works, no wonder you were able to go on and create an amazing business and everything else, because it's, how it works.
Yeah, I learned pretty, and not to say that it's perfect and that I don't have resistance, but early on I think I had a really strong desire. I think that my desire was so strong that any resistance that I had I cleaned up some of it, but I was so determined to get a clean bill of health that I was going to continue to believe it no matter what. That's what I wanted. I wasn't going to take any other possibility. So for me, that's how it worked out, and it worked out great.
Amazing. And so you've done the really serious stuff. You've done the, curing yourself of cancer. You've done the financial, paying off all the debts and creating a hugely successful business. So now is it more about fun things? Is it, is it just almost like a game where you just see what can I have fun with today?
Yeah, it is. I feel like that's probably the best way to describe it. Of course, there's certain things that I'm still cleaning up resistance about with, I think family for me, I love my family, but there's always that old past kind of the way that, my past was, and remembering that sometimes gets in the way. So that's probably the area that I'm really cleaning up more resistance and having fun doing it, actually. But the joy for me is in the journey. So it's about letting the universe surprise and delight me. And every day, like, just today, I had the most magical day so far. It's just been awesome. And not every day has to be just so high, but just allowing the good feelings to kind of take you here and take you there. And so it's more or less the milking the satisfaction in the small things, and then letting those continue to build until they get to a big crescendo, and then starting off again with the small things, and just keep enjoying the journey. That's for me the nuggets that I think are worth savoring for everybody. Just being really happy where you are now, so that you can just let more joy to come in.
Amazing. Now, I actually met you on the Abraham cruise in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean cruise.
That's right. And I remember I had my glasses. I had my sunglasses with the infinity on them.
Oh, yes.
And you just
is my favorite. Yes. So that was a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite physical manifestations, because it's such an amazing manifestation that just, I felt like the universe was just showering me with the perfect gift at the perfect time. So is it okay to share that story now? Is it a good time?
Please do.
Yeah. So I was just in the flow, following my excitement and wandering around town. And I felt the impulse to go into the store, and I had no desire to purchase anything. I wasn't looking for jewelry. I had actually already bought some jewelry, so I was quite satisfied, but it was a go in here, very strong, direct, message. And so I went in, and the jeweler just asked me, is there anything that you're looking for? Or is there anything that you might want? Because I had told him, I'm not really looking for anything. And he said, well, if you were, what would it be? And I said, well, my favorite, my birthstone is topaz, but my favorite stone is blue topaz. And so he said, oh, well, let me show you what I have over here. And as he's showing me these beautiful rings, I all of a sudden glance over, and I see this amazing, perfect bracelet that's an identical match to my ring. I don't know if you can see. It is an infinity. Beautiful. With it's a ring that was designed by my husband for my 8th wedding anniversary. And infinity has always been a symbol that's really resonated to me, been near and dear to my heart. And so he created this. It's like kind of like my inner being told his inner being what to do, because it couldn't have been more perfect what I wanted. And the bracelet is identical to this ring. In fact, I'm sorry I didn't put it on. I should have put it on.
Okay.
But it's literally the exact same way that this part crosses over the other part. I mean, it is to a T identical. It was 4 carats, a 4-carat diamond bracelet. And I just literally blew up with so much joy and love when I saw it, because I knew, what are the chances that anything that's identical to a custom made ring could possibly be created by somebody else. And there it was, just staring at me, when I had just been having the most magical time in the Caribbean, of course, with the Abraham peeps and the workshop, and just having so much joy and fun. And so of course I had to buy it for myself, and it was on a huge discount. He actually threw in the other 2 rings, and he even recoated this ring for me as well with white gold. So I felt like the most love blessed girl in the entire universe that day.
Total abundance.
Yeah. It was so good. So I cherish that. That's just one of my favorite, very personal to me, near and dear to my heart creations, because I didn't even have really the desire for it, but now that I have it, it's just like, oh, I love that bracelet so much. It just means so much.
That's even better when you didn't even know you were looking for it, but it was.
And
that's why
I say that when you're really aligned, that's when you're receptive to things like that. Just coming surprises, that when the Abraham says the universe will surprise and delight you, that's just a little bit of what they mean, I think, because I've just had days like that where I've just been synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity. And this was kind of one of those days where I had just followed my inspiration to go diving by myself. And I had the most amazing experience in the water, and I love sea creatures. So I was just already in the receptive mode, and then it just kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And so that's kind of a glimpse of what, when we're really in that space, what can be possible for us.
For sure. What do you do to make sure that you're aligned? I mean, is it something that you have to really think about now, or is it just natural for you?
Well, most important, just being very aware of how you feel, because your guidance system is always letting you know when you're aligned and when you're not. So it's just paying attention, especially in the earlier stages when you start to have a thought that's out of alignment with your true nature, to just catch it in the earlier stages. So for me, I do have a morning practice that I start out in the mornings, and it consists of, I don't do anything that's rigorous, like disciplined every single day, where it's 10 minutes this, 10 minutes that. But I do make sure that I meditate for sure. And that's usually 15 to 20 minutes of just typical breathing meditation, getting into that stillness, feeling that detached, delicious state that I love being in. And then I always incorporate gratitude into my day, because I feel like whatever you appreciates, you just get more to appreciate. So gratitude is a must. Meditation is a must. And then from there, I typically do some form of visualization. Sometimes it's a walking visualization or active visualization, where I don't necessarily have my eyes closed, but I just get into the feeling place, as if my wish were already a done deal. If my wish was already fulfilled, and just savor that feeling. And I think those are the 3 things that are pretty consistent. Outside of that, I may do some other practices and rituals, but those are my 3 musts. So meditation, gratitude, and then envisioning or visualizing with as if my desire were already done, like it's already a fact now, and how I would feel if that were the case. And that just gets me feeling good. So if I'm feeling good, then my day kind of starts to unfold that way. The other thing that I do that's pretty consistent is I have a little acronym I call as if my day. And that just stands for always set intention first, as if the day went the way you wanted it to go. So whatever I have going on that day, I'll just go to my visualization of how I want to feel after an appointment, however the day is going to unfold. I just go to the place as if it unfolded the way I really preferred it to. And that, I can't tell you, it's almost 99% of the time follows in that progression if I do it. Now, if I forget, a lot of times I'll notice that I didn't do it, because some things will kind of creep in there, but it's a very powerful tool, and it's just a way to kind of set your day up for success.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, because I think some people think the law of attraction is about sitting there and just visualizing the dream house that you want, or the dream partner, or the dream car. And all of these things are really powerful, but actually it's, how do you want today to be? It's like living in the moment of, what have you got going on today? What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to feel throughout the day?
Absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
allowing it to just kind of flow through.
Yeah. And I would say for, just to go back to your question, what else am I doing? I'm following my bliss. I'm following my heart's desire throughout the day. So I'm checking in and asking myself, which feels, actually it's a Bashar thing. He says, follow your highest excitement.
Yeah.
And for me, that has really been probably the best way to measure if I'm in the receptive mode. Am I following my excitement? Am I honoring my preferences? Am I honoring my desires? Because I feel like they're gifts from God. All of our desires and our preferences are the unique guidance that we're getting in the moment every day. And when we're honoring them, we're just allowing more to come in. So I know it's Abraham says it. It's kind of like when you want to go from San Diego to Phoenix, you're not going to get all of your directions told to you all at once from Siri. You're just going to get one turn at a time. And for me, when I'm following in each moment when I have a decision and I'm checking in and asking myself, which feels like more excitement or which one feels like it's more fun or more joy, and honoring that decision, then I get more things that unfold that are even more enjoyable and more fun and more excitement. And that keeps me in the receptive mode. That keeps me maintaining my day in that state throughout the day because I'm honoring my true self. I'm honoring my true preferences.
Yeah. And what sort of decisions are you talking about? Are you talking about major decisions or whether you want a cup of coffee or a cup of tea? I mean, break it down.
Everything. So in the morning, even my morning ritual, what feels more exciting to me, to meditate first or do gratitude first? So it's just being conscious about every decision that comes up and asking that question to yourself. And I feel like the heart is it's your true guidance. The heart always knows the truth. And so I just kind of drop down into my heart space and say, which feels better to me? To go for a walk and meditate, do a walking meditation, or, whatever the inspiration comes up, I ask which feels better, which feels like more excitement. And then I just honor that. What feels more exciting to wear? What feels more exciting to eat right now? Which feels like my highest excitement? What feels more exciting to go to dinner with this person or to stay in and eat at home? What feels more exciting to go on this vacation versus that one? So it's every decision that I get a chance to be consciously aware of making, I try to really pay attention which feels best to me and honor that.
Yeah,
the little ones to the big ones.
This would be such an amazing challenge, I think, especially for women, because a lot of us don't make choices for ourselves. We're either running around after children or partners or other people, pleasing other people. I know that's something I've done for many, many years. Yeah. And so unless it's like a really big decision, you don't necessarily honor yourself. It's like, oh, where should we go for dinner? Oh, I don't mind. Where do you want to go? And we do that so naturally when actually the more I'm learning about, actually just ask yourself, what do you want? It's still okay to do what the other person wants, but ask yourself what you want,
Absolutely. And a lot of times, I want to just make a point that might be helpful, especially to those that have significant others and children and other people in their life they have to live with or make decisions with. A lot of times if it's really about who's in alignment and honoring that alignment that they have, because sometimes if I'm with my husband and he knows that he's more in alignment than I am, then I'm definitely going to trust whatever his highest excitement is, because it's probably going to flow a lot easier and I can line up with his decision. I can find a way to line up with it. If I'm having a moment where I'm in resistance and he knows clearly what he wants, then I don't have any decision, then of course that feels like the next logical step. And it actually usually unfolds really good. But as a parent, I think that same thing, if you're in alignment and you can focus on your children in a way that feels good, then that elicits from them also the same kind of what you put out, you get back. So when you're in alignment, then it's easier for them to be in alignment, and it's easier for you to make decisions together that support each other in the same pattern of alignment. So it typically, if you're in alignment, then your kids will follow in like manner. And if you honor your excitement, then you're actually teaching them by example that they can honor theirs as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it comes around full circle when you just trust your guidance. Yeah.
So what do you do when you're not in alignment? How do you
Yeah.
get through those contrasting moments?
Great question. So I have another little, I love acronyms. So for me, I have another little process. So whenever I start to feel negative emotion, which typically means I've had a thought that's not serving me, that I've entertained for just a little while, I try to catch it as soon as I can, as soon as I start to feel. I'm not always perfect, trust me.
Yeah.
But when I do, I have an acronym. I hit the stop button. And what that basically is that it's an acronym saying that I need to switch to the other or opposite perspective.
So I like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm
I'm taking
easy
that
one. You can, please do. It's an easy one to remember, and it served myself and my clients so much, because when you're focusing on something that doesn't feel good, that typically means that you're buying into a lie, that you're buying into a belief that's opposite of what your source or your higher self or the universe feels or thinks or has a perspective on. So when you catch yourself feeling negative emotion, just hit the stop button and find a way to switch to what's the opposite perspective, because that's usually the truth of the matter. And so there's a many different scenarios I could give you, but if you're feeling like, you can't do something, say, I can't do that. Well, and I just check in, well, how does that feel when I think that? And if I don't feel good when I think it, that's guidance to me saying that I'm off course, that whatever I'm thinking is not the truth of who I am. And so if I were to hit the stop button, what's the other perspective? Switch to that. And so of course I can do anything that I want. As long as I'm in alignment with it and I'm in receptive mode, anything that I want is possible. Anything. I mean, people are breaking world records like every second now. They're exceeding expectations of what anyone thought was possible. It just takes enough desire and a strong enough desire with general desire and little resistance, or stronger desire with a little bit more resistance. So I know the equation and I know how it works, but it's my work to find a way to feel good. And for me, hitting the stop button helps me have the awareness that where I'm going isn't serving me. And so can I switch to the opposite perspective so that it is serving me, and I can really focus on that empowering thought or that empowering belief instead of the disempowering one. And then you feel better when you know that what you're thinking is in alignment with your source, because you're following that true guidance that's always coming to you.
Yeah. But what about the other side of it, where we talk about how contrast is what causes us to expand and to grow?
Absolutely. Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, because it's always benefiting us. And I think that's one of the ways in which contrast is benefiting us. It's helping us remember who we really are. So when we feel that negative emotion, it's very easy to catch it in the earlier stages and to realize that you're buying into something that's not true about you. So try to find the truth of who you are and line up with that instead. So I think number one, the contrast is really helping us do that. And number two, sometimes we have subjects that we do have a lot of momentum on, where that negative emotion is a lot stronger. And the analogy that Abraham gives, and I really like this, is it's like if you're in a train and you're going 180 miles an hour in one direction, it's very hard on the contents of the train to stop and go the opposite direction very quickly. So when in that case, what I do and what I tell my clients to do is, and Abraham actually validated this at the Alaska cruise, so it was perfect. But they said that you can jump to another train, that you can switch to a different train altogether. And that just means that you got to find something else to focus on that feels good. So rather than whatever subject you're on, if you have a lot of negative momentum, then switch to a different train, find something to appreciate. Go back to a time when you felt good, a memory where you were enjoying a sunset, or focus on a child that you love, or focus on somebody that brings you a lot of joy, or think of a funny joke. Anything that you can do that you have access to can get you off of that subject and turn it around. That's how the contrast is also benefiting it. It's teaching us that we are powerful and that we have control of our alignment, that we can focus on anything that we intentionally put our focus on. So we can allow our focus to shift our energy, because where focus goes, energy flows, and focus equals feeling. So if we can learn how to master our focus, then we have mastery over our alignment as well.
Yeah, total mastery. But it's so interesting. You mentioned before that there are certain subjects or topics like family or certain things where there are a lot of emotion. There's a lot of beliefs that have been ingrained as you've grown up. How do you work on cleaning up the vibration around topics that do trigger you, that are very
Okay.
tender, because
Sure.
that's
So
kind of
yeah,
the more difficult areas.
especially because we have people, I think especially our family and our spouses, it's my belief that we have our inner beings are kind of collaborating and helping us grow and expand in ways that really honor ourselves as souls and letting us be fully expressed in this physical experience. So with family, it's, for me, my biggest probably exercise is really to focus on the positive aspects of them, number one, because when you're focusing on everything about them that you love and appreciate, then you're not focusing on the things that irk you or frustrate you. And so I have an ongoing list. So it's not a list that ever has an end. I just keep adding to the list as often as I can and just keep really focusing there, especially if there's a situation that comes up that all of a sudden gets me out of alignment. And then okay, what do I need to do to get back into alignment on this subject? So for me, I find a way to feel good first. So even if it means getting off the subject, I get back into my receptive mode. And when I'm feeling good, then I'll go back to my family or that person or that situation. And I'll look at it as, I'll try to see it through source's eyes. I'll look at the positive aspects of them, and I'll ask myself the question, what are they here to teach me? What are they here to help me see or remember more of who I am? How are they doing that? And so then I get clear about ways in which they've helped me grow or expand or really, be more of my true nature. And then another tool that I do is I sometimes I'll use a revisioning or rewriting process. So if there's something that's occurred that created a negative charge in me, I try to clean that up. I try to go back and I say something to them vibrationally, where I envision them about 10 feet away from me, and I say to them, I freely and fully forgive you for any negative charge that you've given me. And I ask that you freely and fully forgive me for any negative charge that I've given you. And I radiate as much love as I possibly can to them. And I feel that complete circuit. So I feel them radiating it back to me. And then what I do is I will rewrite or revision any conversation or any traumatic or hurt experience where it didn't go the way I preferred. And I don't necessarily change the outcome, but I change the way I feel about them in the situation. So that helps me clean up my vibration, and it leaves it so that it's not this old thing that I want to ignore and not think about. It actually makes me feel good about the situation, and I'm able to move forward in an easy, relaxed way.
Yeah, because if we don't clean it up, it comes back. We create it maybe in a different circumstance, or the story will keep coming back until we deal with it.
The way I say it, I think that we get assignments from our higher self of ways that we can grow and expand. And if we don't do the assignment the first time, it just gets bigger. And it just gets bigger and it gets bigger. And so and not to punish us, but just to help us say, hey, you have an opportunity to grow here. You can either grow now and it'll be easy and fun and less of a rough ride, a bumpy ride, or you can take the longer, harder ride, and that it'll still be good and it'll all work out, but it just won't be as fun. It'd just be a little bit more tiresome.
That's true. And there's always some kind of wisdom that comes out of the wounds, or the gift that comes out of the contrast. But
of course,
you have to get through it. As you said, you either have to get through it or find something else to feel good about before you can reflect back on it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. Your vibration is always where you last left it. And although we don't necessarily intentionally activate it, a lot of times we do activate it and other ways that we're not realizing it. So I call those blind spots. And so it's good to have a coach or somebody that is able to bring those blind spots to the forefront so that you can actually do something about them and transmute that energy. So it's cleaned up and you're feeling better and you're more in alignment and more receptive.
Yeah. So amazing. So let's talk about the last Abraham Hicks cruise that you've been on, because for people that are watching this, I've been on 2 Abraham Hicks events now, and I haven't been on the hot seat, but I haven't actually felt the desire to put my hand up. But my questions always get answered. But for those that know about this, everybody wants to get in the hot seat. And in this last occasion, you got on twice. Is that right?
Yeah, that was, and I usually I've never tried to get in there twice because I typically just, I follow my inspiration, but this time it was a very clear, Abe was like, you know, you want to talk about this more. So I raised my hand and got in. And I didn't have the inspiration to get in the hot seat for the first 5 or 6 times that I went to a workshop either. I actually really enjoyed sitting in the back.
Yeah.
And I can sometimes see energy, not always, but I'm very, I feel shifts a lot. And I loved feeling, or even sometimes seeing, when people would have transformation all at once. It's a palpable feeling, and sometimes a visual, energetic expansion.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite. So eventually I was curious to see how the energy was in the front of the room. And then when I went to the front of the room, that's when I was in a strong receptive mode, and I had the inspiration to raise my hand and get in the hot seat. And now it's just kind of in the moment. I'll wait to see if anything comes up. I generally don't have questions. If you listen to my hot seats, most people always say, did you have a question?
I just
want
to have a chat.
I just want to have a chat. And so generally it's just whatever, you know, I feel inspired, I kind of get from them, talk about this. That's what I'll hear them say, talk about the whales, or talk about your car, or talk about this. And so that was the scenario for this time. Just talk about what the experiences that you're having. And I did have a little bit of a question the second one, and that was, I think, the inspiration why I went up again for the second time.
Tell us about the experience, because it's just such a fun creation that you had there.
Yeah. So going back to my passion and the love I have for whales and dolphins. So on the Alaska cruise, right off the bat, I started seeing humpback whales right when we left Seattle. So those are my favorite species of whales. I used to live in Hawaii, and so I've gotten to see them in the wild many, many times, but I just have a deep appreciation and affinity for them. So that's my highest excitement. And of course, as I'm seeing this, I'm just lit up and so happy and loving the experience. And they're just breaching and putting on a show, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so when I got into the hot seat, I started to talk about that, seeing the whales, and how I was really eagerly anticipating our Monday in Alaska. We had the Tracy Arm Fjord, which is one of my most favorite things in the world to experience. It's just pure positive energy, surrounded by the most beautiful nature, and the stillness that's going on in that passage is just, it's just amazing. Wow. It's just an experience. So then we were going to have an Abraham workshop on the break, and then we were going to be in Juneau, and I had booked a whale watching tour because we had done it 2 years ago at the last Abraham Hicks cruise that I went on with my husband. And so I just felt inspired to do that, and I knew it was going to be an amazing day. And I'm talking to Abraham about it, and they said, you think you're going on a whale watching seminar, but really the whales are watching you. And they meant specifically me. And they said, and even there's also this unusual species of humans that's at a higher vibration. And if you pay attention close enough, you can hear their ship, meaning our ship, and basically telling the whales that, and if you pay, and they're there to put on a show for you, the people are going to put on a show for you, as you'll be putting on a show for them as well. So it was adorable. Everybody loved that, because they were all excited about seeing the whales. And so we had just talked a little bit about that, and I had talked a little bit about imagination in the hot seat. There was some talk previous about Albert Einstein, and so that really lit me up, because I love him. And
me too.
And I asked Abraham about that, and they said that imagination is really the same. It's about being in the receptive mode. In order for you to receive any kind of visuals, that means that you've really been tapped in and turned in, tuned on, because it's in order to actually get some sort of visual or imagery, that means you're really in the receptive mode. And Abraham told us that that's basically being very connected and in the receptive mode. So whenever we're getting images, that means we're very tuned in and very connected. And I love that, because for me, imagination is how we actually come up with inspiration and ideas and our new dreams and visions. And so they just basically said, enjoy the whales, really, they're watching you, and have fun. And so that was kind of the end of that hot seat. And then when we went on our whale watching tour, it was just a magical experience. Our good friend Tom he decided to join us, and he said right before we left, he said, I have this vision of a whale high-fiving you, Cherilyn. And I just thought that was funny, and nothing of it. So when we got out of the harbor, we immediately saw a transient pod of orca whales, which was very rare. It was so rare, it basically, the naturalist who had been working on the boat for 4 years, it took her 3 years to see her first orca pod in that waterway system. The reason being is because there's a lot of humpbacks, and orcas and transient orcas and humpbacks aren't the best of friends, because transient orcas will eat baby humpbacks if they can get them. They eat other marine mammals. Yeah. So it's a rare thing, so to speak. I don't want to focus too much. So it was spectacular that we got to see them. And then they put on a show for us. They were just doing so many beautiful behaviors. They were breaching and tail lobbing and spy hopping and just really cool things that we got to see. And then as we leave to go look for some humpbacks, we see another pod of transient orcas, which we've never, ever, ever, ever heard of. And the captain had said, like 20 some years he's been working in that waterway system, chartering boats, and he's never ever heard of that before. So it was a really unique treat, but then it just gets better and better.
Of course.
So trying to find some humpbacks, we do actually spot one, and we see this splashing, and I forgot to tell you the part about my meditation. I'm sorry. So what made this so special is that a week before the cruise, I had this vision during meditation where there was a female humpback. She was actually at the surface with her belly on the surface and her back down. And I had this vision of her holding me on her chest with her pectoral fins wrapped around me. And it was just this nice vision, kind of like a dream, so to speak. Well, when we see this humpback whale, she's on her back with her belly at the surface, and she's waving her tail, like literally. And we were all just going crazy because it was just so unique for her to be on her belly on the surface. And then all of a sudden she rolls over and she takes a breath, and then she comes up on her side and she starts high-fiving us. Yeah. And she's just like waving her pectoral flipper at us, high-fiving us, and we lost it. We were just, and the captain and the naturalists were just kind of freaked out. They're like, "Who are you people?" And because they're saying the whole time, it's her fault, you know, she's the whale whisperer or something. And they were just like, what in the world? And so she actually dove down and came up on the other side and did the whole thing again, where she started high-fiving us with her other. It was just the most amazing thing. Amazing. And so when we got into Victoria, I had the inspiration, I got in the hot seat again. And this is when I felt inspired to talk about, it was actually about my my acronym. And Abraham was saying, you know, the person before me had talked about catching the thoughts in the earlier stages. And I got in the hot seat and they said, talk about your stop button. So I mentioned to them that I have this process called the stop button to switch to the opposite perspective. And they said, are you telling us that you're, you know, and they said, that's exactly what you should do. That's so good. And then I said, oh, and I wanted to share with you. And I explained to them the whole whale experience that we had. And they said, you're about to get high-fived in all areas of your life. And they said, yeah, it was really good. Yeah. And then they said something that was actually even better. They said, it was a great message for me. And they said, do you trust the alignment of the whales more than you trust the alignment in people? And I said, yeah, honestly, I do. Yeah. And they kind of validated why, because they said that we as humans, we come here to spend, we had intentions to come here and spend only 10% in step 1 and 90% in step 3, the allowing mode versus the contrast. They said that animals come here to spend 99% of their time in receptive mode or in step 3. And they said, but for us, we've somehow switched that, where we spend 90% of our time in contrast and only 10% of our time in the receptive mode. And they said, so it's understandable why you would not really trust the alignment of humans versus the alignment of animals, but we would encourage you to start to maybe consider that as a possibility. And they also said, do you trust your inner being to surprise and delight you as much as you trust the whales to surprise and delight you? And that was another good one, because I do trust my inner being is always surprising and delighting me, but I definitely had a higher expectation for that day for the whales to do it. So it was a really good message for me. And then on Friday, we went to Victoria, and I had the inspiration to go whale watching again, but I had some resistant thoughts that it couldn't get any better than that, because that was like the best. Yeah. But I decided to hit the stop button and check in with my inner being, my heart, and it was said, yes, it's a definite yes, go for it. So I booked it. I went all by myself. And as we come out, we find this really famous pod of orcas, another transient pod called the J pod. And they had this amazing matriarch. I think she was 106 years old that just died. And there were two other matriarchs that were kind of trying to figure out who was going to be the next one in charge. So we got to watch this amazing behavior, and it was just beautiful. Well, the naturalist feels inspired to tell us the story about the humpbacks, the local humpbacks, who have become quite altruistic, meaning that they are showing compassion for other species of animals other than themselves. And so much so that there was a scenario where they had a sea lion, a female, went up on her with her belly at the surface of the water so the sea lion could hop on her chest, and they would protect it from the humpback whales. And so some males came and surrounded her, and they said it was a couple hours. So every time that the whale had to breathe, she would wrap her pectoral flippers around the sea lion, turn over and breathe, and then come back up on her back with her belly at the surface. And when he told me that, I just lost it. I was like, it can get better, and the universe can surprise and delight you in ways that you can't imagine. And then as we were heading back to the harbor, we did spot some a humpback whale. And as we go over to see it, it dives down, it kind of eludes us, and we're focusing on the front of the boat, waiting for it to come back up. And all of a sudden, one comes up on our port side, and it's this loud breath. They're humongous animals, so it scares everybody on the boat because we weren't expecting it. And so as we're looking over here, watching for it to come back up again, another whale on the starboard side pops up right next to the boat and does the same exact thing and scares all of us again. And we're just like, ah! And then as we're focused over here, a third whale comes up and does the same thing. And of course, the naturalist felt inspired to say, he said, it's like, this has never happened before. It's like playing whack-a-mole with whales. And when he said that, I lost it again. Because obviously that's Abraham.
That's what Abraham says, yeah.
They whack you when you think it's your turn, or they're calling on you and they whack you.
Yeah.
So that's just a recent experience. That was a really fun.
How much fun.
Yeah.
Wow, so many nice experiences. So what's next for you, Cherilyn? What else are you hoping to bring forth?
That's a great question. So I'm about to really fully come out of the closet as a coach. So I've been doing this referral only for the last 6 years. And through meditation, I've developed several products that have come through, and I've had many people that have been asking for me to mentor them on wealth and money. And so that's my next big thing, to come out of the closet, to launch my product, to be of service to more people, and do more of a group coach or an online kind of scenario so that I can reach more people, because now I'm getting to the point, I love traveling and I love my lifestyle, but my coaching schedule has gotten one-on-one so booked that I'm feeling a little bit of the nudge to expand more and help more people, and that's where I'm at right now. So
that sounds really exciting.
Thank you. I'm loving the unfolding and the learning. I'm learning so much about, marketing and product launches and things I have no idea about, but I'm actually loving learning about them. So that's been fun for me.
Amazing. So where can people find you? What's the best contact?
Yeah, I just created my my Facebook page. So it's just Cherilyn Jones, my name. And if you just go to www.cherilynjones.com, I do have a Kajabi website that I just created. Right now, that's where you can find me. I have a few videos that I've been doing. So I did an Abe recap of the Alaska cruise. And then I just did a Tony Robbins UPW, or Unleash the Power Within event. And I did a recap of that. And then I also did a video of my manifestation story of my Tesla. People had been asking for that. So
we haven't heard this one. Have we got time for a quick update on this one?
Yeah. So this is another favorite fun story. So my Tesla is my second favorite physical manifestation. My bracelet was my first. So I've always had a strong affinity for Nikola Tesla and Elon Musk, and the car itself is just this beautiful car, but I didn't have the belief that it was possible, because it's just too much money for a car, and that's a bad investment, and all these thoughts that come up, right? So, but I didn't really give too much momentum on the thoughts. I just basically, whenever I would see a Tesla, it would light me up and I would have appreciation for it and leave it at that. So one day my girlfriend Courtney was coming to pick me up, and we were on our way to drive up to North LA from San Diego to the Abraham workshop. Yeah. And I'm on the phone with my best friend, already just flying high, talking to her. And as we're driving, pulling out of my driveway, I see two Teslas immediately. And at this time, they weren't in my awareness as much. So when I saw one, they felt like a big deal. It felt like a great gift. And so immediately I say, oh, I'm in the receptive mode. I'm in the receptive mode. And on the way up, we stopped counting. I mean, we saw probably over 100. We saw so many Teslas in like a 2-hour trip. It was every time I would see one, I would just celebrate and cheer and say, I'm in the receptive mode. I'm in the receptive mode. And then all of a sudden, I was such in the receptive mode, I got a clear vision that there would be one in my driveway soon. I mean, it was just a knowing, like I saw a pearl white Tesla in my driveway, and it was real. It felt like now I have this desire to have one in my driveway. And I look at my friend Courtney and I said, I'm going to have a Tesla in my driveway soon. And she's like, cool. Like,
okay.
So I just left it at that. I went to the workshop. We flew, it was great. We had great conversation. And then Monday, it was still there. That desire was so strong. And then the thought was, well, you don't even know if you like them. You haven't even driven one. Why don't you just go test drive it? Yeah. And so I followed the inspiration and I started researching them. I started learning about them. I had some questions. I saw the price tag. I knew how much they were. And then all of a sudden I go to my test drive, and I didn't have a terrible experience. The car itself was phenomenal, but the salesperson was new and she didn't know much about them. And I literally was going to buy a Tesla that day. I would have walked out the door with one if she would have been able to answer my questions. And so I just was a little disappointed. So I started looking into used Teslas because I thought, well, 6 figures is a lot of money to spend on a car. And it's a bad investment because they depreciate, and et cetera, et cetera. I started getting those resistant thoughts. So I started looking into used ones. And as I'm researching, I decide that I want one that's made 2015 and newer because they have the autopilot technology. They have the firmware. Anything that's made before that doesn't have the ability to drive itself. And I really wanted the car to drive itself.
Drives itself?
Yeah. It drives itself. And I knew it wasn't quite released yet. So the cars that were made at that time had the ability, but they weren't going to release them, the actual software, until later. The government was just signing off some final things. So I knew what was coming. And I knew which cars could do it and which ones couldn't. And so as I'm looking, one car comes up available that it's a beta car they've been testing it with the autopilot technology, and it comes up for sale, but it's silver and it's not pearl white, which is what I saw in my driveway. And that was feeling like, for me, what I really wanted. So I was very torn. It was like I had a little carrot that was dangling. And I had set up a second appointment to go back. The manager called me and she knew I didn't have a great experience. So she wanted me to come back. And so I decided to honor that appointment. And I told the guy that had the used one that I would give him a decision at the end of the day. And on the way over to the appointment, I see 2 pearl white Teslas, which for me was just such a clear sign, like, honor your guidance. Yeah. So when we get there, I find out it's 8 weeks out before they can deliver my car. They have to build it and get it to me. And I didn't want to wait that long. I was about to go on the South Pacific cruise for Abraham, and I wanted to have my car in my driveway for when I got back. And so I was just very torn. Should I buy the used one? I can have it now. It can drive itself, but it won't be pearl white. Well, as I'm thinking about it, she feels the inspiration. She said, you know what? I think I have a car for you. And she goes and she looks, and she has this show car that has all the bells and whistles, things that I wouldn't have bought for myself. It has the best sound system. It has all-wheel drive. It has all of these things that I wouldn't have gotten for myself. And it's ready to go because it's an actual inventory car. And so as I'm talking to her, I find out that all of these tax benefits that I qualify for not only make the car so much more worthy because of the tax write-offs, but it ends up being less than what the used car actually is because of all the write-offs that I get. And so it was a no-brainer for me. It was just like the universe,
white,
right? And I didn't have to wait. And so it was literally, I had the car from the time that I had the thought of I'm going to have a Tesla in my driveway. I had it in my driveway in 2 weeks. It was just like most perfect, fun unfolding of getting that car, because it was so much better than what I expected. I got a car that drives 0 to 65 in 3.2 seconds. So it's so fast that you get whiplash if you're not putting your head on. And it literally, it's an amazing thing. We get updates all the time that make the car even better. So it's constantly giving back to me. Yeah, it just gets better. Yeah. So the car is like its own consciousness. It's just its own kind of, person, I guess, or its own being. And the car and I, we love each other. So
I can tell.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's such a better driver than I am. Because it can react faster than I can, and it can see 360 degrees everything that's going on.
Oh my God, I want one. We've been talking about Teslas all week with Lana's been doing her launch, and everybody's just been talking about Teslas, and they just keep showing up. So this is perfect.
I want your driveway if you're not careful.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Yeah, I know. I can't say enough good things about them. They are just the most amazing technology that I've ever experienced. What they've done, and the quantum learning, the computers. So when one car learns how to do something better, it teaches all the other cars. They're all connected to the network. And I've seen it evolve over the last couple of years since I've had it. And it's just blowing my mind how it just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Just phenomenal. So that's my Tesla.
It's perfect.
A lot of people ask me about the money part. They say, well, where did the money come from? Honestly, the money was there. The wealth consciousness was there. It was the deservingness and feeling that I could spend that much money on a car. That's where I needed to clean up my vibration. And that was easy once, as my inner being was telling me the tax write-offs and things, then I started to loosen.
Justifying it. Yeah.
I was able to lessen the resistance so that it was a make sense decision. But even after I bought the car, I realized it doesn't matter if I lose it tomorrow. If something were to happen, I could care less, because the experience, the gift that I gave myself was so worth. It was a priceless feeling to feel like I deserved that car, that I was worthy enough to have that car in my driveway. So
you are so worthy.
Yeah, I know. And it's just reflecting that back, right? Everything is a mirror. So as I project it, I get it back. And I think that's when Abraham says the joy is in the journey. It really is about the unfolding. For me, the unfolding of the car was just, once it got there, it was great to drive it, but just every nuance along the way was just so delicious and so good.
Oh my God. You are an amazing Abraham chick. You really are. It's been so fun to have you and to talk to you. And so excited to see what happens with your new programs, and what you can teach other people and help them with their wealth consciousness. We will all be driving Teslas.
Thank you. I would love the whole world. In fact, that's actually probably going to be happening at some point. So, yay, I'm excited for everybody to have what they want and to get what they desire, of course.
Oh.
Well, Tina, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you, and it's been my pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.